Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Nutrition and Wellness for Myeloma event. This is part of the Myeloma Crowd Community Program by HealthTree, and my name is Audrey Burton-Bethke, and I am the Myeloma Crowd Community Manager. I'm joining you today from Washington State. Normally I join from Utah, but it's exciting to be in a different environment, but still be able to talk to you guys. I think my mind is really blown every time we use technology like this. And I'm excited for this time that we get to spend together, and just especially that you took the time out of your day to come watch this, or maybe you're watching the recording. I would like to thank our community event sponsors today: Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, AbbVie, Adaptive Biotechnologies, Genentech, Oncopeptides, and Takeda Oncology. Today's subject will be regulating diabetes through nutrition. And Dr. Urvi Shah, who is a multiple myeloma specialist, and she is the one that helped launch this Nutrition and Wellness for Myeloma chapter, she recommended her associate, Dr. Mahima Gulati, to talk to us about regulating diabetes through nutrition. And I read through Dr. Gulati's slides. I'm super excited for you to hear from her today. She's going to be talking to us about what is healthy, what's not healthy, and also, when we know what is healthy, how can we reach that? How can we become healthy and eat healthy foods even when we have obstacles in our way? As well as how can nutrition help us regulate diseases in our body, such as diabetes? So we're excited to hear from her. It's my pleasure to introduce her formally. Dr. Mahima Gulati, MD, MSc, ECNU, FACE, is a fellowship-trained endocrinologist and lifestyle medicine physician at the Middlesex Health Multi-Specialty Group Endocrinology Office. She earned her medical degree, at Maulana Azad Medical College, and I'm sorry if I butchered that, in New Delhi, India. And she earned a Master of Science in Clinical Investigation from the University of Utah. And she holds 4 board certifications. Dr. Gulati has an active clinical practice at Middlesex Health Multi-Specialty Group, endocrinology, where she also founded the Thyroid Nodule Biopsy Clinic, and she's performed over 500 of those thyroid nodule biopsy procedures in the last couple years. Dr. Gulati co-leads the American College of Lifestyle Medicine Task Force on Health Disparities among vulnerable populations of women, as well as leads the Lifestyle Medicine program at Middlesex Health. Dr. Gulati, we're extremely excited to hear from you, and we'll turn the time over to you now to share your slides and give us your presentation.
Thank you so much. It is my honor indeed to be here today, and I will start sharing my slides. Give me just 1 second.
No problem.
All right, are you able to see my slides?
Yes, we'll wait for the, there we go. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much everybody for joining us, and you can hear me okay, right, Audrey?
Yes.
All right, okay. So my goal here is for, everybody, not just people with diabetes, but anyone, at any stage of health in their life. Just a little bit of a primer on the how to eat, the what to eat, the what not to eat, the when to eat, all these, the common things that we, just to dispel some of the myths and, some popular misconceptions and marketing hypes around these topics, and give you the real science on that. And, I always like to begin with, my husband always, likes to tell me to begin with why eat healthy, what is healthy, what's not healthy, because it's also equally important to know the the gimmicks and the hype that surrounds certain of these healthy foods or nutrition superfoods. And so some of us, we know all the facts, the knowledge is there, but how do we go about actually incorporating these into our very busy lives, right? If you can't cook and all that. So I'm going to try to give a little bit of um, nuggets about each one of these topics. So I would like to introduce our viewers to the concept of lifestyle medicine. I don't know how many of you all have actually heard of the new discipline, the new specialty of lifestyle medicine, Um, and it's actually a very science-based, rational, evidence-based approach to tackling some of the most pressing problems of our time. The chronic disease burden that faces not just the United States, but also the whole world, really. The hypertension or high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, um, obesity, fatty liver disease, you name it. So the cornerstone or the bottom of all of those, at the bottom of these is the lifestyles that the modern 21st century, um, in today's world, we humans face. And the four pillars of lifestyle medicine are nourishment, movement, resilience, and social connectedness. Um, broadly speaking, nourishment not just of the body but also of the mind. The kind of diet that we consume, our thoughts, our media intake, our social media intake, etc. Movement is, of course, self-explanatory, whether we are sedentary or whether we, move around all day long. Resilience, again, not just the body but the mind. How we handle stress, how you know we deal with the responses to inevitable stressors in our life, and like social connectedness, basically how we interact not just with our families but also people at large around us, our communities, our neighborhood, the basically the entire gamut of human life, right? And so, why eat healthy? In terms of public health, I don't need to belabor the point. I think COVID-19 also has made it very plentifully clear um, that our lifestyle is basically at least 80%, if not more, of the health problems that actually faces us today. And in terms of our own individual reasoning, I think if all of us as attendees on this Zoom call, if we can just take a little bit of time, maybe 15 seconds, to reflect in our own mind. We don't, feel free to put it in a chat box, but like, think about why we want to be healthier. If you can just think about 15 seconds, why in our life, in your life, what is it that drives us to like eat healthy or adopt a certain lifestyle behavior. Maybe you want to embark on a 20-minute walking program, and just jotting it down somewhere in this chat box or wherever you can see it every day. Why is it that you're looking for a better health? Maybe it is to attend a child's wedding, or maybe it is to do something that you really are looking forward to do. So just keep that why in your heart and in your mind, and at the the bottom of all of this at all times, because that's what we need when the going gets tough, right? When it's really late at the end of the day, and I don't feel like doing the 20 minutes of walk, but why do I want to do it? That will be very key. And so, yeah, I think you know take your time to think about that. And I can tell you about, I think Audrey had wanted me to share a few case studies. um, and so I can tell you about how frequently and how many times I see in my office patients who have turned their life around with um, just adopting the lifestyle approach. And one case that comes to my mind is a patient of mine. I have changed his name. His name is not John, but he came to me when he was 65. He's now 67. And he had been diagnosed with heart disease. He actually had a heart attack at the age of early 50s. And that was also the same time that he got the rude news, or the bad news, that he had also had type 2 diabetes, which is 90 to 95% of all the diabetes that we see, which is the common diabetes. And his health in those years was not the best. He had a total of 8 stents in his heart, and he also had a heart bypass surgery done. And he was really not doing very well. He was his body weight was close to 300 pounds. He was 288 pounds. He would get hospitalized very frequently with pneumonias and bronchitis, literally 2 times a year. And then on his last hospitalization, which was around early 2019, he met with somebody who really told him, that you have to change what you are eating, because this condition will not let you lead a very happy life. And so he something clicked, and he went on, he looked it up, and he went on Dean Ornish diet, which is a very low fat whole food plant based diet. And we'll talk more about the whole plant food approach in the next parts of our presentation. But he did incredibly well with that. He gave up a lot of processed foods, he gave up all animal products practically, especially red meat, high fat cheeses, etc. So he became super low fat. He does not eat more than 10% of his calories from fat. Um, and he is now down to 229 pounds. He had met me in May 2019, and at that time, his hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of a person's sugars on an average, that was 6.9%. I'm sorry, it was 10.5% back then when he saw me, which is very high. And he's now down to, the last I saw him, he's down to 6.9%. And the most important thing is, he made all of these changes in 2019. And so before the pandemic began in March 2020, he was feeling the best he had felt in 20 years, because his condition really started to deteriorate in early 50s. But now he no longer gets frequent pneumonias. He's not being hospitalized twice a year. And he really, he tells me how lucky he feels, because if he had been sick with COVID, he thinks about how well he has done with lifestyle changes. He has recently moved his home, and he's, like I said, he's 67 now. So the bottom line is that he is very I just want people here to feel that no matter how advanced your disease is, there is always hope. Because remember, this guy, he has had 8 stents and 1 bypass surgery, and he was being hospitalized twice a year, and he was very weak. But he was able to lose about 60 pounds. He was able to stop getting hospitalized. Now he has begun a walking program in the last 6 months. His sugars are amazing. An A1C of 6.9% is beautiful. And he's not on insulin any longer. He takes just metformin for his diabetes, along with another medication, which is called Januvia, which is a tablet once a day. So I just wanted to, tell the participants here, no matter where you are in your journey, whether you have advanced disease, whether you have no disease, all of these pillars, the nourishment, the movement, the resilience, and the connectedness, can help you no matter where you stand in your life. And there are many more such examples in my um, practice, and I can share with you later if we have time. But, John is not alone. There are so many more. If you go on the websites that I tell you, who have turned their life around just by, um, like adopting whole plant food based approach to their life and doing all the other pillars. So for John particularly, I thought the moral of the story was food is medicine. There is not too many medications that I know, or too many procedures or surgeries that I know, that can give the same type of impact that John got with his change in lifestyle, right? So this is actually not a new concept. Human beings have known about it. The ancient sciences of Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine, or even if you go back to Hippocrates thousands and thousands of years ago, let your food be your medicine. And I think, I forget how many hundreds or 1,000 tons of food we eat practically every year, right? We ingest at least hundreds of tons of food every year. And there is no other substance that we put in our body, no medicine that we put in our body that is that many tons a year. So it would be not correct to assume that our food will not make an impact on our health, because there is no other product that we put in our bodies that could have the same impact as the food that we eat. So every time we put anything in our mouth, it is an option, it's a chance to either cure a disease or to promote a disease. And that choice really lies at the edge of our fork. Now, I want to, and again, none of these images, I think most of these are from the public domain on the internet. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is the colors in our food that we have. We want to make sure that the plate that we have is colorful, that it represents literally all the colors of the rainbows or many colors of the rainbow, because these colors are actually medicines. They represent different actual molecules that, believe it or not, scientists are trying to extract in order to, do things like cure cancer and cure diabetes and so on. So, for example, orange color represents beta carotene, which is a very potent antioxidant and it supports immune system. The green color in cruciferous vegetables, for example, some of that comes from not just chlorophyll, but also other chemicals like indoles and lutein. And cruciferous vegetables are very powerful anti-cancer vegetables. So everybody must eat one serving of cruciferous vegetables daily, which is basically nothing bigger than 1 cup of cruciferous vegetables, your cabbage and broccoli and mustard greens and kale and arugula and so on, right? So 1 cup of raw vegetables or half a cup of cooked vegetables daily is the minimum we should eat of the cruciferous vegetables. Similarly, our aromatics like onions and garlic and asparagus, etc., they are again very potent anti-cancer chemicals in them. And allyl sulfides, and some of these are being tested in the labs to extract these molecules and make chemo drugs out of them, because they are so good at fighting cancer cells in a test tube. Blueberries are known to have the color, and the blue color in them comes from anthocyanins, which are an antioxidant pigment that are very helpful in fighting things like Alzheimer's and destroying free radicals. And last but not the least, fiber, which is one of the most amazing health-giving uh, nutrient or content in a plant food. There is, I could do an entire talk just on the benefits of fiber, but suffice it to say that fiber basically is the part of the food that stays undigested when we eat, right? It goes through our small intestines and reaches our large intestines. And the bacteria that live in our large intestine, the good and the bad bacteria that inhabit our body, they are the ones that feast on this fiber. So it is food for the bacteria that live in our gut. And by feeding our body the fiber, we actually promote good bacteria, and these good bacteria can then help our body by creating chemicals called postbiotics, like short chain fatty acids, etc., that actually help us fight things like diabetes, like cancer, like autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, etc. So the bacteria that live in our body really control our health massively. Our gut microbiome is frequently referred to as the forgotten organ. And in order to feed that forgotten organ, the number one, two, and three is fiber, fiber, and fiber. And of course, that's found in whole plant foods. And processed foods don't have nearly enough fiber. They barely have any fiber. So this slide, I just wanted to let you know that our food is literally teeming with nourishing chemicals or molecules. Um, and this is all science based. This is not, old wives' tale. The same thing, and I think one of the things that I wanted this slide for is antioxidants. That we hear so much about what is antioxidant. Antioxidants, so what we do, when we inhale, when we breathe oxygen, our body uses that oxygen to generate energy, right, for metabolism. But in that process, we actually generate, these reactive oxygen species or free radicals that can actually damage our body cells. And so our body naturally has mechanisms or enzymes that act as antioxidant to destroy these free radicals. But these colorful molecules in our whole plant foods that we eat tend to have antioxidative properties. And study after study after study shows how unprocessed actual whole plant foods are teeming rich with these antioxidants. And the plants actually synthesize these antioxidants in order to shield themselves against stress, right? Because the trees, they need to grow despite lack of water or droughts or floods, etc. So these are protective chemicals that plants store in them in order to protect them against the stressors of the nature. And by eating these whole plant foods, like corn on the cob or green leafy vegetables like kale and broccoli, etc., we are actually ingesting these super chemicals, or these nourishing antioxidants to destroy the damage that's being done in our body. So this was, again, something that you can do. Feel free to use the chat box if you want, but just, how many of us are eating the minimum recommended 5 servings of vegetables and 3 to 4 servings of fruit daily? That's the ideal. But if that is not something that we are doing, that at least 5 servings of total fruit and vegetables in a day. Now, by 1 serving of vegetable, I already told you that's 1 cup raw or half a cup cooked. And the same thing for a fruit serving, 1 medium-sized fruit or a cup of cut up fruit, right? Like a cup of blueberries or a cup of raspberries. So, how many of us are meeting the minimum requisite World Health Organization criteria, which is 5 servings a day, most days of the week? So, think about it. If you want to do like a chat survey, that's fine, but that's the minimum we should be eating daily. And that's one thing that I want all of our participants here to think about when they go back, if they are doing that much to nourish our body. Again, the same concept, what does a good plate look like? A healthy real like food plate. So again, half of that plate would be vegetables and fruits of different colors. Think of the colors of the rainbow. And then 1/4 of that plate would be uh, unprocessed, whole, intact, unrefined grains. So, by grains, I do not mean white pasta or white bread or white flour. I mean completely unprocessed. And so, ideally, intact grains like, wheat berries or quinoa or brown rice or wild rice or, um, rye berries or amaranth or buckwheat groats, etc., oat groats, etc., or steel cut oats, right? So that should be 1/4 of our plate, or at least half a cup of cooked whole grains at each meal. And then the remaining 1/4 would be the legumes, which is plant protein. And that is a big shortfall in the American diet. We don't eat enough lentils and beans and chickpeas and split peas, etc. So this would be the protein that we ideally rely on: tofu, tempeh, um, kidney beans, black beans, cannellini beans, etc. And then for beverage, water. Not diet soda, not sparkling flavored beverages, just real plain water. So that would be an ideal healthy plate, and the goal should be to stick to this at least 80% of the times, right? If we cheat 25 to 20% of the times, that's possibly okay. Our body can deal with it. But if we are not doing this 75 to 80% of the times, then there will be chances that eventually it will all add on, especially as the older we get, right? And now I also want to introduce the concept of calorie density, because that's very important for type 2 diabetes, to make sure that we are getting lowest possible calories for the most volume of food, right? So calorie density basically means how many calories are packed in a unit of the food. So this is what 500 calories look like. I think our stomach has a capacity of, I believe, 900 milliliters, which is just short of a liter. So with 500 calories of real fruits and vegetables, as you can see, we can actually fill up our tummy. Same thing with, real plant foods, so with potatoes and rice and beans, we can really nourish our stomach, make it filled without, overdoing the calories. But then the more high fat we start getting, meats or cheeses or oil. Oil is the most calorie dense food that we know about. And so 500 calories will nearly not be enough to fill up our tummy. So if you're looking at the volume of the food and how much it takes to fill up, the lower calorie density, which means vegetables and fruits, the easier it will be to fill up and get less calories, right? And one of the important concepts from this talk that I also want to impart, and which people don't know about, is that oil is best limited. Very, very rarely, very, very seldom, don't overdo the oil, because that's very easy to get loaded up on calories. And there are some other harms from oils, especially if we heat them at really high temperatures, or grill things with oil. No matter what the oil, even the healthier oils like extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, you don't want to overdo them. They should be more the exception than the rule. So just wanted to lay that out there. Real olives are okay. Olive oil, you want to moderate that. Same thing with anything. Real avocado, that's okay to consume, but avocado oil, any oil, no matter what, it's still excessive calories. So in terms of the food rules, the best thing is eat food, and by that I mean real food. Not edible food like substances packaged in brightly colored boxes and packages. Those are not foods. Those are maybe factory products. So not too much, and mostly plants. This is a very wise adage by Michael Pollan, one of very renowned food scientists at Berkeley. And this is, a very good adage to follow when it comes to food rules. I'll skip this one just for the in the interest of time. But there are certain things, like buying food imposters. Try not to do that. That would be a food mistake. Maybe buy foods with less than 5 ingredients on the label. And then again, this is very a good rule to follow: shopping for the on the go foods that enable secondary eating. It's better to shop for foods that can only be eaten at a table with a fork and a knife. And then buying ready made foods, again, a no go. Shop for ingredients, not meals, if you can. And then, remember, there was a concept of what not to eat. And this is something that we should perhaps clean up our pantries out of. And many of us, we don't do well with moderation around these, so it's best not to buy these, best not to have them. If you're going to go to a birthday party or something, and if it is not that frequent, once in a while maybe it's okay to indulge in them. But at home, maybe don't stock these up, not for your kids, not for your grandkids, not for yourself. And this is an acronym, I think, that was coined by a very renowned dietitian, Jeff Novick. CRAP, C for carbonated drinks, R for refined sugars, A for artificial foods, the foods that our grandmothers or great grandmothers would not even recognize. And then P, of course, for processed foods, the things that, don't have anything um, nutritionally. So these are the foods we don't want to eat at all, or really, really restrict them. Okay, so again, this was the concept of the nutritionally empty calories. Um, this is the processed food, fries on the left side, 323 calories, no vitamins, no minerals. And then 32 calories of broccoli, same volume. If you can see, they're both a cup, right? 1 cup each. The broccoli has all of these loaded vitamins and minerals, right? And only 32 calories, right? So ideally avoiding all nutritionally empty calories. So, feel free to take a break if you would need to. And then we can talk a little bit about how much to eat. And for that, again, there are certain concepts that I can lay out. So if you've all had the time to stretch, um, there is a very nice Japanese rule of Hara hachi, which actually comes from, which I first read about from the Blue Zones book by Dan Buettner. And that's the 80% rule, where stop eating when our stomachs are 80% full. So stop when satisfied, not stuffed. And that would be a good rule of thumb. So I think in order to achieve that, maybe start with a smaller plate, like a dessert plate or a quarter plate, and put small servings. And then when you've had that, maybe take a little walk around the living room or outside, and then come back for a second helping if required. But really listening to the hunger cues of our or the satiation cues of our body, and leaving that 20% room for maybe water and air for digestion, right? And then when to eat is very, very critical, especially if you have diabetes. Eating at 3 regular times a day, for example, 8 in the morning, 1 at night, and 6 at night. Again, this is just an example, but just making sure you're eating at 3 regular times a day. And that's harder if you have a night shift, right? And again, in those cases, also, I would encourage you to make up like a timetable or some kind of a schedule where you're only eating a little bit at set times and you're not eating the rest of the 12 hours. And you've got your circadian rhythm tuned to that. Eating seated without distractions, it's easier to say than to do, especially with our busy office lives. But it's really important to keep the screens off. Ideally, eating outside at lunchtime if you have an office where you can sit outdoors, especially during summertime, that would be really, really helpful. If you have people who you can share your meal with and share your day with, that would be very, very helpful. And then when not to eat is critically important too. After 7 o'clock, if you have a normal day shift work, especially if you have diabetes, the earlier you eat in the day, the better. It is important to give our body's insulin producing cells, the pancreatic cells, the break from 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night all the way until 7 o'clock in the morning. And that time that the insulin producing cells get to do just repair and regeneration is critical. So it is important not to eat too late at night. And then it's important not to eat while driving, during screen time, watching TV, checking social media, or multitasking of any kind. Try not to eat during those things. Snacking or grazing continuously or on the go or secondary eating would again be important to avoid, especially if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes. And so that would conclude the when not to eat. And then what to drink, just basically plain old water would be ideal. Maybe seltzer if you don't like the taste of water, but I really would want you to get introduced to the taste of water. And again, I cannot here, this is a funny meme that I got off the internet, but basically I cannot emphasize the importance of adequate hydration. You will not believe how many patients I see in my day-to-day practice who are, who suffer from all kinds of ailments, be it, migraine or lack of energy or, joint pains, body aches, muscle aches, just because they don't drink enough water. So please stay hydrated. And this is just, again, a generic picture I got off of internet. If the taste of water doesn't appeal to you, then make it what we call, PLANTASTIC, right? So you can make infused water and you can add certain colorful ingredients to it, like, maybe cucumber and mint or rosemary and thyme or some citrus fruits or strawberries, etc., to give it that zing, right? And then keep on sipping on it all day long. And I've got my water here, which I'm going to sip on. Just to make sure. And many times, we think we are hungry, but all that we are is thirsty. And just drinking 8 ounces of water or 12 ounces of water will take away those hunger pangs. And so let's go on to some practical tips about how to readjust the palate, how to reproportion our plates. Remember that plate that I showed you, half is vegetables and 1/4 and 1/4 is healthy carbs and healthy proteins. So reproportioning, this is a good tip from Michael Pollan's book, Food Rules, which is instead of an 8-ounce steak and a 4-ounce portion of vegetables, serve 4 ounces of beef and 8 ounces of vegetables, right? So just reproportion it or flip it around and make your plate a little bit more vegetable heavy. So reproportioning 101, this is a standard stir fry rice plate with chicken. So reproportioning would, as you can see, you have it basically loaded up with all the vegetables, lots of colors. You've got your reds and greens and some yellows shining out there. Decrease the amount of rice to, maybe half a cup of cooked brown rice. Don't do white rice if you can avoid it. If you don't like the taste of brown rice, try mixing half brown rice and half white rice to begin with until you get used to it. Or try quinoa or try some other grains like barley, groats, etc. And then, again, minimize the amount of animal products, chicken, beef, etc., that you've got. Try to cut back on the portion, not more than 3 to 4 ounces at a serving, right? And then, one of the things that you can try doing as a nice hack is, decorate your pantry or your kitchen islands with like these colorful cookbooks. And if they're staring at your face every day when you come back home for dinner, then maybe you'll feel, or your family will feel, more encouraged to try out some of these recipes. These are some suggestions. I like these books, How Not to Die particularly, but a lot of these are everyday recipes, as you can see. And then the same thing, if you've got, like some apps, many of these are free. I don't think Forks Over Knives is free, but that's a great resource. Many of my food pictures today are from Forks Over Knives. Uh, Tasty is a great app. Not all of them are healthy, so you might want to choose the options that are oil free and plant based. And 21 Day Kickstart app is a great app. It will give you a free 21-day menu planner. You don't have to do any hard work. It takes the thinking out. You get your everyday breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, dessert, etc., and you can just follow the 21-day app and see how that 21-day jumpstart really, at the end of that 21-day, without having any oils or meats, how does that feel? If you feel great, if you feel more vibrant, more vital, more energized, less tired, then maybe that 21-day will encourage you to stick to that plant-based for the future. And then, in terms of, if you're having a hard time wrapping your head around completely eliminating or minimizing animal produce, think of all the entrees that you already enjoy, and then spin them, like make them plant based. So this is again, like I said, a Forks Over Knives recipe. I think this is a very popular recipe on that website. And this is a no tuna chickpea salad. So instead of having tuna salad, which is loaded with some grease and mayo, etc., this is a relatively lower fat option with chickpeas, which are very healthy, which are packed with fiber. One of the highest fiber foods in the world is chickpeas, and it tastes really good. So, think of other things, like this is a taco. So instead of having beef tacos or, pork tacos, this is a cauliflower taco with, I think, lentils in it. You can add pinto beans, etc., etc. And then, you want to make the tortilla whole grain, whole wheat tortilla if you can, right? Then this is a mac and cheese. Instead of having, again, high fat cheeses, this actually gets its cheesy flavor from squash and sweet potato and even regular potatoes, some nutritional yeast or other condiments. And then, of course, to your pastas, you want to add a lot of vegetables, right? So add your green peas, your carrots, your broccoli, your green onions, and even green leafies. You can add kale and spinach, etc., too, right? This is a fruit pizza on a whole wheat pita bread. And then, think about rainbow colored Buddha bowls or Nourish bowls. And, there are all kinds of, if, you want to take 10 seconds now and think about, or maybe take 20 seconds right now and think about all of the options that are, palatable to you, or think of things that you can make in your Buddha bowl that would be acceptable in terms of the protein and the vegetables and the whole grain carb. And lots of, again, I don't want people to feel that healthy food is untasty or unappealing. I just, one of the main aims of my presentation today is to make it look appealing and seem appealing, and really, dispel some of the myth around it that healthy food is only lettuce and salads and grass. It can be unapologetically delicious. It just needs a little bit of skill and, time. And the time is actually not that much. It is really more the mental effort than the actual effort. So again, there are some of these, one of the things that I wanted to tell people with diabetes or anybody who's watching their weight is avoiding commercial dressings. And, maybe having your own one or two handy dressings at hand every week. you know you can make your own homemade dressings without oil, without additives, without emulsifiers and artificial ingredients, added salt, oil, and sugar. So, just it, all it needs is a, if you want a creamy dressing, you can have some nuts, etc., or some tofu. But if you want just a plain vinaigrette dressing, all it needs is acid, some flavorings, some spices, etc. Some sweeteners, which can be real fruit like raspberries or berries, etc., or even bananas and applesauce, and uh, just some permutations and combinations. For example, you could get orange and peanuts and miso paste and sesame seeds, etc., to make an Asian dressing, right? So homemade dressings can be a very good option to cut the calories and cut the uh, artificial ingredients that come in processed dressings. And then, again, spending 40 minutes a week, taking the time to pack your lunches ahead of time. You can get mason jars, put your dressing at the bottom or fermented vegetables at the bottom, like, sauerkraut, etc. And then, your hard fruits and vegetables, then soft vegetables and fruits, and then your healthy plant protein, and then pack them up with greens at the top and have them ready for the full week. And then again, I just also wanted to lay it out there that fresh whole plant foods are very easily affordable, especially if you have a good, local farm share or a local farmers market or things like Costco, etc. If you stick to real whole foods, if you're going to try to do plant-based alternatives like plant-based sausages and plant-based proteins, the commercial ones can be expensive and they are not really healthy. But the real plant foods are very healthy and very easily affordable. Dried beans, especially, they're like 199 a bag, etc. So, our audience here for the next 21 days, let's do a greens and berries challenge, having at least one serving of green leafy vegetables, ideally different types, not just spinach, not just lettuce, but different types like kale and collard and mustard and, broccoli rabe, etc., etc. And one serving of berries, which is 1 cup of berries. So, all of us, and we can add things on top. You can make a complete salad with all the other vegetables, mushrooms, eggplant, you name it. But greens and berries every single day for the next 21 days. So whoever is up for the challenge, you know, let's do that. Let's have the accountability. And then again, this is from, I'm going to skip that, but this is how tasty and how nourishing a real whole plant food based diet can look, right? These are tacos with avocados and lentils and cauliflowers. These are pasta, whole wheat pasta, or some lentil pasta, chickpea pasta with, again, boatload of vegetables thrown in, real oatmeal, steel cut oatmeal with berries, etc. And so, again, we need not compromise taste and prices in the quest for healthy, real food. In terms of taste, this is a nice saying by, a cardiothoracic surgeon in California. His name is Dr. Ellsworth Wareham. He passed away a couple years ago at the age of 104. He was actually doing surgeries part-time until he was 95. And he said, all human tastes are acquired except mother's breast milk. It is possible to acquire new tastes even at an old age. So you are never too old and it is never too late to embark on a good journey. And he himself actually went plant based at the age of like late 50s, and he lived his best life in his later years. So it's never really a late time to really kickstart, like I said, for 21 days or for 14 days and see the results and then keep on going, no matter where you are in your journey. And that's basically my, I'm not going to go into the planet aspect of the plant-based diet. I'll stop here if you're okay with that, Audrey, and then I'll take question answers. And I'm sorry for the interruptions in between. I
Oh,
apologize.
no. We totally get it. I mean, it's been a year of this doing Zoom at home, so and in the office, so we all get it. No problem. Thank you for that presentation. I have to admit that meme about the drinking water made me laugh so hard. So I enjoyed that you incorporated those kind of things into your presentation.
Actually, doing any kind of presentation, my favorite part is looking up online for memes. That I think I spend more time on that than I should.
No, it's great. It makes it more personable, and I love the examples that you gave too of the meals because, you know, I'll be honest, before this nutrition and wellness for myeloma chapter, my husband and I were not eating the healthiest, and now after hearing from experts, like this is really what you should do, we've been able to find such delicious recipes and such great substitutes for what we were eating before that I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. You know, I was more of that rabbit food mentality, and it's been fun to
And
discover.
there is actually a discipline called culinary medicine, which is coming up big time. All the big ticket health systems like Harvard and Stanford, they actually have their own culinary medicine program where, MDs and their medical students are being taught how to incorporate real food
Oh
and
wow.
into like real medicine, right? Because there is no amount of medicine that we like. How many tons of medicine do we take a year? No. The amount of volume of food that we put in our body is way more voluminous than any other thing we put in our body. And to believe that that won't impact our body cells, our health, is naive, right? It's not, and that's not based in science.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
science around healthy food and how to make it practical, how to make it work for everyday Americans, that's coming up, thankfully. It is really the craze right now. But
Wow.
it's also important to, cut the clutter and to stay, away from the fads and the hype.
Right. And I appreciated what you said too. You know, as we wait for questions to come in, we have some coming in that I'll jump to in a second, but I just wanted to finish the thought of I thought it was so fascinating that they are taking elements of foods in order to fight diabetes, fight cancer, and that is a testament to how well these foods work if we would just put them in our body. You
Exactly.
know?
Yeah, no,
And
I think some of those chemicals, I didn't go into the names, but some of those names you might actually recognize because these are sold on, health foods or, your even regular normal grocery aisles as supplements like quercetin and curcumin. You might have actually seen these in the, the supplement aisles. And these are like, there is a chemical called indolyl 3 carbinol that's actually present in broccoli, cauliflower, all the cruciferous vegetables. And there is a lot of interest to extract this in order to, basically make a anti-cancer drug. Same thing with Alzheimer's drugs. There are a lot of these molecules that are being tested or just, used as a drug. And the other important thing about that is to think about these chemicals in the context of a food. So, what you get from a broccoli is so much more complex and rich than what you would get if you just extracted its active ingredient.
right.
Because a broccoli is not just, that particular chemical, but it's got a big synergy. It's got fiber, it's got all of these other minerals going on. And the way that, you can really enhance your health by eating a real broccoli rather than by taking a capsule, that cannot be understated. In fact,
Right.
P. Colin Campbell had actually said that, to just take that molecule out and use it as a supplement and then go on and eat burgers and donuts, that would be like, basically sending the general to the war without his army, right?
Right.
You can't
Right.
just have but that one particular molecule and then think about eating a bad diet in the context of a supplement.
I love that. Thank you. All right, let's get to the questions. People are excited. So we have Vicky. She says myeloma patients are often on, and Vicky, I'm so sorry, I'm going to mispronounce this medication, but decadron,
Yeah.
which I imagine is some kind of steroid. Oh
Yes.
yeah. So can sugar levels ever be really controlled while on this steroid? I think that's a great question, and it's one that we hear a lot. We have these sugar-inducing medicines through the steroid. How can we balance the diabetes?
So, I think it depends on your individual constitution, and your activity levels and your stress levels and your sleep, etc., and overall health, right? Dexamethasone in general will increase the sugar levels. So, it is possible to control it by, again, eating a whole plant food based diet. You may need certain medications only while you're on the steroids. And the good thing is with the myeloma, hopefully the therapy would be limited to a few months or a few years at the longest, right? So as long as you're on it, you may need certain medications, metformin being the most helpful one. But there are other good ones like semaglutide, also called Ozempic. And sometimes you might need insulin, which is fine. And yet, the most important thing would be diabetes. In my office, I call diabetes diabetes, right? Because it really is number 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to sugar management. So, if you ate a huge plate of that, what we said, that 900 milliliters in our stomach, and you ate broccoli with your mac and cheese, and you had like a huge boatload of vegetables, you're not going to have sugars in the 200s and 300s, no matter how much decadron you take, if you fill up with vegetables first.
Great.
Fruits also are equally good. Apples are not going to spike your sugars. And I know there are some myths and misconceptions, or you cannot eat fruit. You can eat all the fruit. You can eat
Mhm.
berries. You can eat, you know, fruit all day long. Apples, berries, these do not cause diabetes.
Yeah.
Our civilization was made to eat fruit. Don't be guilty about eating fruits and carbs.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. There's another question actually about how do you have more tips about how to include more fruit in your diet? And if you don't mind me sharing something, obviously I'm not a doctor, but something as my husband and I have embarked on this whole food plant-based diet, and we're not perfect at it either. But we've been doing breakfast smoothies in the morning. So we'll have spinach and strawberries and berries and a banana and some almond milk and make the smoothie. And that's been a good way for especially my husband to get more fruit into our diet. But do you have any other suggestions or?
That's fantastic. Drinking your smoothie, although, with the smoothie, if you have diabetes, you want to be careful because, grinding the fruit into a smoothie sometimes may lead to the sugar surge.
No.
For diabetes, sometimes we have that saying that I eat the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the fruit, so help me God, right? That you
Sure.
want to eat the fruit in its entirety. But in your case, I think if you do want to have a smoothie, maybe make it a smoothie bowl and take it with a
Uh,
spoon slowly so that the sugar won't surge, and take your time eating that smoothie. So you want to eat
good
that
idea.
calorie rather than drink that calorie. And if you have the luxury of time, if you can eat it slowly over 1 hour, maybe put some like healthy fats in it, like ground flaxseed or ground chia seed, etc., to make it thicker. And that is another good way to incorporate fruit. You can have fruit in your salads. For diabetes, I also recommend, if you are worried about surging your sugar, especially with fruit like mango or pineapple, which is a little bit higher glycemic index, then you can moderate that with eating it with some vegetable. Like if you want to take like shaved Brussels sprouts or arugula leaves and put your watermelon or your mango on that, and if you eat it with a fork and you have a lot of greens attached with that fruit, then it is going to decrease the sugar surge that you're going to get from that fruit. So with diabetes, you can eat your fruit as long as you are eating the whole fruit. You're not drinking fruit juice, obviously, and you're eating it slowly, especially with lots of vegetables or lots of healthy fiber containing fats. That will decrease the surge.
That's great. Thank you. That's incredible. Okay. One of our attendees is curious if there is a significant difference in nutrient content between organic and non-organic fruits and vegetables.
In terms of nutrient content, it is not entirely clear. The studies are not very robust around whether the nutrient content differs significantly. In terms of overall health, though, maybe there is some merit of eating organic foods, especially the ones that are called, the dirty dozen. I don't know if people are aware of the Environmental Working Group, and they take out a list every year that talks about the dirty dozen, which is the top 12 products which are very contaminated with pesticide residues. And always the top three are apples, berries, and green leafy vegetables. So typically, the apple you never want to get conventional if you can avoid it. And organic apples are available very freely. Organic berries are typically harder to find, especially in certain places in winter. So you may have a better luck with frozen organic berries. And the same thing with organic green leafy vegetables. It depends on where you're located and which part of the country you are in and what season. So again, frozen organic greens is a good option. But please look at that dirty dozen list, and if you can avoid those conventional or non-organic, that would be great, and get them organic as easily as you can, as affordably as you can. I
Right.
mean, that being said, if you have no option, even conventional plant foods, real foods, are better than eating processed foods or animal foods, etc. Because animal foods come with their own share of problems, their own share of antibiotics and hormones and um, other additives like salt, etc. added. Even, a good organic clean chicken breast is coming with a lot of salt added to it.
Right.
So you're going to be okay if you're eating conventional produce if that's all you have. And then there is a list called the Clean 15, which is the 15 produce that are actually least in terms of pesticides. And typically avocados are cleaner. I think mangoes are cleaner. So those are the products that tend to be less in pesticides.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Then we have a question about being a type 1 diabetic. So, are there any changes to the basic plant, whole food, plant based diet when we're talking about type 1 diabetes versus type 2?
So there is a very good resource available online, but I think there may be a wait list for that. There's a website called masteringdiabetes.org, and that is actually run by two plant-based. I think they are both PhDs. They themselves have type 1. And they have a book also. I think, again, I don't know them personally, but I've found their website to be useful to some of my patients who have type 1. But just some of those things that I talked about in terms of sugar surge. So, if you're eating fruit, especially the fruits that are a little bit high glycemic index, like banana or melons or mangoes, you might want to add a little bit of vegetable to that, or add a little bit of like almond butter or something to slow down the sugar surge, because, type 1, you can have a sugar surge no matter how much insulin you take.
Mm-hmm.
But the other concepts remain the same. You always want to really emphasize the vegetables, the main part of your plate, colorful, whether steamed or raw, or blanched or whatever. And then you want to have your healthy grains, and with grains, it's important to have diversity. So there are certain grains like barley groats are supposed to be less in glycemic index. Then there are certain of them like millets, etc. They may be a little higher glycemic index. So again, lots of vegetables on them in order to decrease the sugar surge. And there is something called Whole Grain Council. You can look up the website. They will tell you about all these different grains that we don't eat, right? When we think of grains, we think about just wheat and rice. That is our standard grain, right? But there's so many other amazing, nutritionally more rich grains like buckwheat, like amaranth, like millets, like quinoa that we never eat. And I would encourage, people to play with these grains, especially things like buckwheat, which are ancient and they are more nutritionally richer, um, to add to their palate.
No, that's great. I'm learning so much. I want to go grocery shopping. All right. So then a couple more questions and then we'll finish here. So we talked about, if we don't really like the taste of water, then maybe some seltzer. What is your opinion on,
Or infused water. Or
yeah, or infused water? Yeah. So this question is about herbal tea when it comes to trying to get that hydration intake. What is your opinion on herbal
I
tea?
think they are really good. If you can get, herbal teas are, if they're caffeine free, if you're looking out for caffeine, again, you don't want to overdo caffeine, maybe 2 or 3 cups a day is okay. Green teas are actually very healthy. And if people are looking to do weight loss, green tea is a good product because, it has a certain chemicals like EGCG, which is it helps in terms of increasing metabolism and expediting weight loss. You want to source your green tea from good places, organic, good sellers. And then there are all kinds of hibiscus tea is supposed to be very health promoting. Tulsi, which is holy basil tea, is another good one. Rooibos is another good one. Or rooibos, I forget how it's pronounced. Chamomile is very relaxant. So again, as long as you're not adding, a lot of dairy or a lot of sugar or maple syrup, etc., to these teas, if you're having them just on their own, that's a very good way to get your fluid.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
don't drink caffeine too late at night.
Yeah. For anyone. um, and then the last question that we'll finish off with is what about plant-based burgers that you can find like in the freezer section of Costco or something? What are your opinions on those kind of things?
Again, those are good if you are really a burger person. This is a good way to, kind of make the switch. They are less environmentally crippling, so to speak. They are, maybe a little bit healthier than red meat, and they do taste very good. So if you're going to switch from a red meat based diet and you really have to have some, like taste that, the flavor that you miss, to transition, it's good. But then eventually you want to move to whole foods. You don't want to stay stuck there. I don't want you to be like if you were having red meat 3 times a week or more than that, and now you're having, Beyond Burger that many times a week. It's possibly a little bit better, but it's not where you should stop. You should keep on moving on your journey eventually to get to a place where you can make your own, black bean burgers or your mushroom burgers. And for that, those resources that I shared, especially, those apps and those websites, um, they have some very easy to make. You can just have leftover bean soup, add some, quinoa and oats, etc. in it, grill it on a, or even cook it on a skillet on a stove top, and you can make your own burgers easily. Add some herbs and spices. So if you're looking to go plant based, my 2 words for you are herbs and spices. You want the flavor, and you can get all kinds of herbs. There are all kinds of seasonings. There are barbecue seasonings. There are, you know, uh, burrito seasonings. You name it. There is no dearth of flavors that you can find. And make your spices your friends, and you're not gonna miss the animal produce.
Awesome. That's encouraging. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Dr. Gulati. I really appreciate you. I appreciate all of you who asked your questions today, who participated with us. We're going to close out with a few announcements. And then after those announcements, you're free to go. um, all right. So our next meeting is going to be on May 28th, 2021, obviously, at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we are going to be discussing imaging manifestations of common Western diseases. Radiologist Natasha Wehrle will be giving her findings on how poor nutrition visually affects the health of our bodies and organs. You may also be interested in other myeloma crowd community events that we have coming up. Tomorrow, April 28th at 1 p.m. Eastern is our Selenexor support group. Beth Ian will be sharing her myeloma story with us. And Beth was diagnosed at a really young age and she had an aggressive myeloma. She recently ran out of options about a year and a half ago, I believe, and she was put on selinexor and has since seen miracles and has given her a new shot at life, and she wants to share that experience with other people. Tuesday, May 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern is our myeloma financial coach chapter. Diana Valentine, who is our myeloma financial coach, and attorney Stuart Pope will be discussing housing and rental laws for those with disabilities. And in this case, myeloma is classified as a disability. This is especially pertinent in areas of our country right now that have high eviction and foreclosure rates. Even if you feel that this topic does not apply to you personally, perhaps you can join so that you can spread the news with others in the myeloma community who might need it. Wednesday, May 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern is our Fitness for Myeloma chapter. The topic will be called The Importance of Strength Training, a Call to Action. Lindley Sweeney, who is our chapter head, will be giving us a live demo of strength training workouts we can complete at home, and she'll be including modifications for those of us that need it. Thursday, May 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern is our stem cell transplant chapter. Whether you have an inpatient or an outpatient procedure, or maybe are just considering a stem cell transplant, learn which items you're going to need in those first 30 days. The same day at 2:30 p.m. Eastern will be our Intermountain Myeloma chapter event, where specialists from Huntsman in Salt Lake City, Utah, will be coming to talk about improving the quality of life for myeloma patients in survivorship. The link to sign up for any of these events and even more events that I haven't mentioned today are found at the bottom of this slide. Again, the myeloma crowd slides and the recording of this session will be shared with you. And it will be in our follow-up email sent out 24 to 48 hours after this event. Thank you again to our sponsors, AbbVie, Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Genentech, Karyopharm Therapeutics, Oncopeptides, Adaptive Biotechnologies, and Takeda Oncology. And thank you to you for joining us and strengthening the myeloma crowd community. Thank you, Dr. Gulati, again for your time. I appreciate all of you, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for attending.